I've been studying successful people for more than 40 years now, and I've noticed something peculiar. You can take two people, give them the same opportunity, the same resources, the same amount of time, and one will turn it into a fortune while the other will turn it into a complaint. Same circumstances, different results. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what made the difference. Was it talent? Not always. Was it connections? Sometimes, but not usually. Was it luck? Well, that's what the unsuccessful person always says, isn't it? But here's what I finally discovered. The difference wasn't in what they had or what happened to them. The difference was in what they expected to happen. Let me tell you about a turning point in my own life. I was 25 years old, broke, with a family to feed, and nothing working out the way I'd planned. I mean nothing. My bank account was embarrassing, my prospects were dim, and honestly, I was expecting more of the same. That's just how life was going for me, or so I thought. Then I met a man who changed everything, and it wasn't because he gave me money or offered me a job. He changed me by showing me something I'd never seen before, someone who genuinely expected things to work out. Not hoped, not wished, expected. This man was my mentor, Earl Schoaf, and the first time I sat across from him, I watched how he handled a business deal that fell through right in front of us. A major contract, one that would have meant serious money, just collapsed. The other party backed out at the last minute. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's it? That's how life goes? But Earl smiled. Not a fake smile, not a brave face, a genuine smile. And he said something I'll never forget. Well, this just means something better is on its way. Now, I thought he was crazy. I really did. But here's the thing. 2 weeks later, a bigger opportunity showed up. And it wasn't coincidence. It was because Earl kept looking, kept networking, kept moving forward while I would have been home licking my wounds. That's when I started to understand something fundamental about success. Your expectation isn't just some feel-good mental trick. It's a strategic position you take in life that determines everything else. Think about it this way. If you expect things to work out, what do you do differently? Well, you keep looking for solutions. You make one more phone call, you try one more approach. You stay in the game longer. But if you expect things to fall apart, what do? You quit early. You don't bother with that extra effort. You see problems as permanent and insurmountable. Same situation, different expectation, completely different actions. Here's what most people don't understand. Acting as if everything works out for you isn't about being naive or ignoring reality. It's about choosing which reality you're going to focus on. See, in any situation, there are always two sets of facts available to you. There are facts that suggest things might not work out, and there are facts that suggest they might. Both exist simultaneously. The question is, which set are you going to build your strategy around? Most people, when faced with a challenge, immediately start collecting evidence for why it won't work. They become lawyers for the prosecution of their own dream. But the successful person does something different. They look for the opening, the possibility, the angle that might lead to success. I learned this lesson the hard way in my early days of building a business. I had this product I was trying to sell, and the first 10 people I approached said no. Now, I could have looked at that and said, see, this doesn't work. People don't want this. That would have been accurate based on the evidence I had. But instead, I chose to think differently. I thought, well, if 10 people said no, that just means I'm getting closer to the people who will say yes. Was that just positive thinking? No, it was strategic thinking. Because by expecting that yes was coming, I kept going. I made it to person number 11, then 12, then 20. And guess what? Some of them said yes. But here's the key. They could only say yes because I showed up. And I only showed up because I expected it to work out. This is what I call mental positioning, and it's one of the most powerful concepts I can share with you. Your mind is like a soldier in battle. Where you position that soldier determines what they can see, what they can shoot at, and what opportunities they can seize. If you position your mind in the territory of things never work out for me, then that's the only terrain you'll operate from. You'll see evidence for that belief everywhere. But if you position your mind in the territory of things always work out for me, suddenly you're operating from completely different ground. You see different opportunities, you interpret setbacks differently, you persist longer. The fascinating thing about this principle is that it creates what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I prefer to call it a self-fulfilling philosophy. When you genuinely expect things to work out, you unconsciously start doing things that make them work out. Your body language changes. Your tone of voice carries more confidence. You ask better questions. You're more creative in solving problems because you believe there is a solution. Other people sense this expectation in you, and it affects how they respond to you. Have you ever noticed that? Some people walk into a room and you just sense they expect to succeed, they expect to be well received, they expect the meeting to go well. And more often than not, it does. But let me be clear about something important. This isn't about ignoring problems or pretending difficulties don't exist. That's foolishness, not faith. When I say act as if everything works out for you, I'm not suggesting you ignore the flat tire on the side of the road. I'm suggesting you approach that flat tire with the absolute certainty that you'll handle it, fix it, and get back on the road. See the difference? One is denial, the other is determination, backed by expectation. I remember talking to a man who lost his entire business in a recession. Everything he'd built for 15 years, gone. And when I met him, he was already planning his next venture. I asked him, how can you be so optimistic after such a devastating loss? And he said something brilliant. He said, Jim, I didn't lose 15 years of experience. I gained it. And now I'm going to apply everything I learned to build something even better. That's acting as if things work out for you. He didn't deny the loss. He didn't pretend it didn't hurt. But he positioned his mind to see that loss as a setup for something greater. Here's what I want you to understand. Your expectation is the lens through which you see reality. And that lens determines what you notice. If you expect failure, you'll notice every sign that confirms failure is coming. But if you expect success, you'll notice different things. You'll see the opening where others see a wall. You'll see the lesson where others see a disaster. You'll see the beginning of something new where others see an ending. Let me give you a practical business example. Two salespeople go to the same territory. One expects people to be difficult, uninterested, and unlikely to buy. The other expects people to be friendly, curious, and looking for solutions. Now, they're meeting the same people in the same town, but watch what happens. The first salesperson approaches each door with subtle defensiveness. Their pitch is apologetic. They're already preparing for rejection, so they make it easy for people to say no. They hurry through their presentation because they don't expect the person to be interested anyway. The second salesperson approaches each door with genuine enthusiasm. They ask better questions because they expect the person might actually need what they're offering. They listen more carefully because they expect to find the fit. They persist through initial objections because they expect that yes is possible. Same doors, same product, completely different results. And it all started with expectation. The second salesperson isn't ignoring reality. They're creating a different reality through their expectation and the behaviors that flow from it. This is what most people miss. They think expectation is passive, like hoping for rain. But expectation, when it's real, when it's genuine, is incredibly active. It changes how you show up, how you sound, how you think, how long you persist, and ultimately, what you achieve. The truth is, life has a strange way of meeting you at the level of your expectation. Not always immediately, not always in the way you planned, but over time, your results will match what you genuinely expected to happen. If you expect to struggle your whole life, you'll find ways to struggle even when opportunity knocks. If you expect things to work out, you'll find ways to make them work out even when circumstances are difficult. Your expectation becomes the thermostat that sets the temperature of your life. Now, let me take you deeper into why this works. Because if you don't understand the philosophy behind it, you'll abandon this approach the first time things get tough. And they will get tough. Life has a way of testing whether you really believe what you say you believe. So here's the foundation. Everything in life operates on principles, whether you acknowledge them or not. There's a principle in farming that says you reap what you sow, not sometimes, not when you're lucky, always. Plant corn, get corn. Plant weeds, get weeds. This isn't optimism or pessimism, it's just how it works. The same principle applies to your expectations and actions. When you act as if everything works out for you, you're planting different seeds than someone who acts as if everything falls apart. And just like the farmer doesn't plant his seeds and then dig them up every day to check if they're growing, you don't abandon your expectation just because you don't see immediate results. The farmer has faith in the process because he understands the principle. He knows that if he does his part, prepares the soil, plants good seed, waters weeds, the harvest will come. Not because he's lucky, but because that's how the principle works. Here's what I've learned over decades of watching people succeed and fail. Belief doesn't just change how you feel. It changes what you do. And what you do determines what you get. It's a chain reaction. If you believe things work out for you, you'll take actions that people without that belief won't take. You'll start the business. You'll have the difficult conversation. You'll invest in yourself. You'll try again after failing. And those actions create results that people who didn't take those actions will never see. Then they'll look at your success and call it luck, never realizing it was the inevitable result of a different belief system producing different actions. I knew a woman years ago who started a small restaurant with almost no money. Everyone told her it wouldn't work. The location wasn't great. She had no experience in the restaurant business, and the competition was fierce. But she had this unshakable expectation that it would work out. Not hope, expectation. And because of that expectation, she did things differently. When a supplier gave her trouble, she didn't panic and think, see, this is falling apart. She thought there must be a better supplier, and she found one. When her first chef quit, she didn't close down. She got in the kitchen herself and learned to cook while searching for a replacement. When customers were slow the first month, she didn't despair. She started a creative marketing campaign and went out into the community. Every single one of those actions came from her expectation that it would work out. And here's the beautiful part. It did work out. Not because of magic, but because her expectation kept her in action long enough for success to materialize. 10 years later, she had 3 locations. But it all started with that fundamental expectation that shaped every decision she made. Now contrast that with another person I knew who started a business around the same time. He had more money, better connections, and frankly a better location, but he expected it to fail. Oh, he didn't say that out loud. He said he was being realistic and preparing for the worst. But that expectation shaped everything. When a problem came up, he saw it as confirmation that things were falling apart. He made decisions from fear rather than confidence. He cut corners to save money because he expected to lose it anyway. He didn't invest in marketing because he thought, what's the point? And sure enough, within a year he was out of business. He'll tell you it was the economy or bad luck or unfair competition. But the real reason was that his expectation created behaviors that made failure inevitable. Here's the distinction most people miss. Acting as if everything works out isn't passive. It's not sitting on your couch visualizing success while eating potato chips. That's fantasy, not faith. Real expectation, the kind that changes your life, is active. It's the difference between wishing for a harvest and actually planting seeds. When you genuinely expect things to work out, you become actively engaged in making them work out. You don't wait for success to come to you. You go out and create the conditions for success to occur. Think about the farmer again. Does he just throw seeds on hard ground and expect a harvest? No. He prepares the soil. He plants at the right time. He waters. He protects the crop from pests. He does his part. And then he trusts the principle to do its part. That's active expectation. That's acting as if the harvest is coming because you're doing what produces harvests. The same applies to your life. When you expect things to work out, you prepare. You develop skills. You build relationships. You take care of your health. You manage your money wisely. You do all the things that make success more likely. and then you trust that the principle will work. Let me tell you something else I've learned. Problems look completely different depending on your expectation. If you expect things to fall apart, every problem is evidence that the end is near. It confirms your worst fears. You spiral into anxiety and often make the problem worse through panicked decisions. But if you expect things to work out, problems become puzzles to solve. They're temporary obstacles, not permanent barriers. You stay calm, you think clearly, and you find solutions that the panicked person never sees. I experienced this myself during a particularly tough business period. We lost a major client, had cash flow problems, and 2 key employees quit in the same week. But I'd already trained myself to expect things to work out. So instead of panicking, I got curious. I thought, okay, what's the opportunity here? Losing that major client forced us to diversify, which made our business stronger in the long run. The cash flow problem made us tighten our operations and become more efficient. The employees leaving opened positions for 2 people who turned out to be even better fits. Every single problem became a setup for improvement, but I could only see that because I expected things to work out. Here's another critical insight. When you expect things to work out, you learn to fall forward instead of falling backward. Everybody falls. Everybody fails at something. That's not optional. But successful people fail differently than unsuccessful people. When unsuccessful people fail, they fall backward. They retreat. They become more cautious, more fearful, more convinced that things don't work out for them. But when successful people fail, they fall forward, they extract the lesson, maintain their expectation, and use the failure as information to adjust their approach. I failed at many things before I succeeded at anything. That's just the truth. But I never let those failures change my fundamental expectation that ultimately things would work out. Each failure taught me something. Each setback prepared me for what was coming next. I didn't waste time feeling sorry for myself or blaming circumstances because I expected that even this failure was somehow serving my ultimate success. And looking back now, I can see how every single failure was necessary. It taught me what I needed to know to handle success when it came. This is where personal responsibility becomes absolutely crucial. See, you can't control outcomes, but you can control your expectation and your response. Some things are outside your control, the economy, other people's decisions, unexpected events. But your expectation, that's completely within your control. Your response to what happens, that's within your control. And here's the powerful truth. When you take full responsibility for your expectation and your response, you reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become a creator of results. Most people give away their power by letting circumstances determine their expectation. Things go well, they expect more good things. Things go poorly, they expect more problems. They're like a boat with no rudder, just drifting wherever the current takes them. But when you decide, regardless of circumstances, to maintain the expectation that things work out for you, you become the rudder. You're steering your life rather than just reacting to it. Let me be honest with you about something. Maintaining this expectation requires discipline. It's easy to expect good things when everything is going well. The real test comes when you're facing rejection, loss, disappointment, or failure. That's when most people abandon their positive expectation and default to fear and negativity. But that's exactly when maintaining your expectation matters most. That's when it makes the biggest difference in what happens next. I've seen this play out hundreds of times. 2 people lose their jobs. One expects they'll find something better. The other expects they'll struggle. The first person updates their resume immediately, reaches out to their network, stays sharp in their appearance and attitude. The second person gets depressed, withdraws, lets themselves go, and approaches job hunting with desperation. Which one do you think gets hired first? Which one do you think finds the better opportunity? Same starting point, different expectations, completely different results. The person who expects things to work out carries themselves differently. They sound different in interviews. They attract different opportunities. And when the right opportunity comes, they're ready for it because they expected it. The person who expects struggle actually creates struggle through their energy, their preparation, and their approach. Then they point to their struggle as proof that they were right to expect it, never realizing they created it themselves. This is the self-fulfilling nature of expectation. What you expect, you unconsciously work to create. Your mind is always trying to make your external reality match your internal beliefs. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll unconsciously make decisions that create unlucky outcomes. If you believe things work out for you, you'll unconsciously make decisions that create positive outcomes. This isn't mysticism, it's psychology. It's how human beings function. So here's what I'm really saying. Acting as if everything works out for you isn't just a pleasant way to live, though it certainly is more pleasant. It's a strategic approach to life that produces better results. It keeps you in action when others quit. It helps you see opportunities when others see obstacles. It makes you someone people want to work with, invest in, and support. It gives you the persistence to outlast your competition and the creativity to solve problems others can't solve. And over time, over years and decades, it completely transforms what's possible in your life. Now let's talk about what this actually looks like in your daily life, because philosophy without application is just entertainment. How do you actually live this way? How do you act as if everything works out for you when you wake up Monday morning with bills to pay, problems to solve, and challenges staring you in the face? It starts the moment you open your eyes. Most people wake up and immediately start rehearsing their problems. They think about what they're worried about, what might go wrong, what's not working. They're programming their mind for struggle before they even get out of bed. But someone who acts as if everything works out does something different. They take a few moments to set their expectation for the day, not in some airy-fairy way, but deliberately. They think, today is going to be a good day. Problems might come up, but I'll handle them. Opportunities are going to present themselves, and I'll be ready. That might sound simple, but it's profound. Because that morning thought pattern determines your mental posture for the entire day. It's like tuning an instrument before a concert. You're setting the frequency you're going to operate on. And throughout the day, when things happen good or bad, you interpret them through that frequency. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you're in business and you're preparing for an important meeting. Someone who expects things to fall apart prepares defensively. They focus on what could go wrong. They rehearse their excuses. They're already planning their retreat. But someone who expects things to work out prepares offensively. They focus on value they can provide. They anticipate opportunities to serve. They prepare to win. Same meeting, same preparation time, completely different approach. And I'll tell you right now, the second person is far more likely to walk out of that meeting with what they wanted. This applies to your self-talk throughout the day. Listen to how you talk to yourself about challenges. Do you say, this is going to be hard, I don't know if I can do this? Or do you say, this is challenging, but I'll figure it out? Those two statements represent completely different expectations, and they'll lead to completely different levels of effort and creativity. The first statement is rehearsing failure. The second is affirming your ability to succeed. Here's something most people don't consider. Who you spend time with either reinforces or undermines this expectation. If you're trying to maintain the belief that things work out for you, but you're surrounding yourself with complainers, cynics, and people who expect the worst, you're fighting an uphill battle. Their negativity will seep into your thinking. Their low expectations will pull yours down. But if you associate with people who also expect good things, who see possibilities, who persist through challenges, their expectation will strengthen yours. I'm not saying abandon people who are going through hard times. I'm saying be careful about making chronic complainers your closest advisors. There's a difference between someone who's struggling but still fighting and someone who's made negativity their identity. The first person can inspire you with their resilience. The second person will drain your energy and dim your expectation. Now, let's address something important. What about realism? What about preparing for things to go wrong? Here's where people get confused. They think acting as if everything works out means being unprepared for difficulties. That's not what I'm saying at all. Smart people prepare for contingencies. They have backup plans. They save money for emergencies. They develop multiple skills so they have options. But here's the key difference. They prepare for potential problems while expecting ultimate success. Think about insurance. You buy insurance, right? But you don't expect your house to burn down. You're being prudent while maintaining a positive expectation. That's wisdom. The person who acts as if everything works out is actually more prepared, not less, because they take action. They build their skills. They expand their network. They save money. They take care of their health. They're preparing for success while being prudent about challenges. The person who expects failure often doesn't prepare at all because they think, what's the point? Let me tell you about a decision I made years ago that illustrates this principle. I was offered a chance to speak at a large conference, but it was months away and there was no guarantee it would lead to anything. The fee was modest, and I had other opportunities competing for my time. Now, I could have looked at that and thought, this probably won't amount to much. I should focus on sure things, but instead I approached it as if this was going to be a breakthrough opportunity. I prepared extensively. I customized my content specifically for that audience. I followed up with people I met there. I acted as if this event was going to change my career, and it did. Several people in that audience became long-term clients. One introduced me to someone who opened up an entirely new market for my work. Another invited me to speak at an even larger event. None of that would have happened if I'd approached it half-heartedly because I wasn't sure it would pay off. My expectation that it would work out caused me to put in the effort that made it work out. This is what acting as if everything works out looks like in practice. It's making decisions as if they're going to succeed. It's investing in relationships as if they're going to matter. It's developing skills as if you're going to need them. It's treating opportunities as if they're valuable, even when you can't yet see the full picture. Every day, in dozens of small decisions, you're either acting from expectation of success or expectation of failure. And those small decisions compound into your entire life. So let's talk about what happens over time when you live this way, because that's where the real magic occurs. Success isn't about one good day or one smart decision. It's about the compound effect of thousands of decisions made over years and decades, all flowing from a fundamental expectation about how life works. When you act as if everything works out for you consistently, something remarkable happens. You actually become a different person. Think about two people starting their careers at 25 years old. One expects things to work out, the other expects struggle. Fast forward 30 years. The first person has taken more risks because they expected them to pay off. They've built more relationships because they expected people to be helpful. They've learned more skills because they expected to use them. They've persisted through more failures because they expected ultimate success. The second person has played it safe, avoided risks, limited their network, and quit too early on most things. At 55, these aren't just two people with different bank accounts. They're two completely different human beings. Different levels of confidence, different amounts of wisdom, different capacities to handle challenges. That's the compound effect I'm talking about. Every single day that you maintain this expectation, you're becoming someone different. You're building a track record with yourself of following through, of persisting, of finding solutions. And that track record becomes unshakable. Confidence. Not arrogant confidence, but the quiet certainty that comes from having solved problems before and knowing you can solve them again. I look back on my own life now and I can see clearly how this philosophy compounded. Early on, when I started expecting things to work out, I saw small results. I made a sale I wouldn't have made. I met a person who helped me. I learned something that proved valuable later. But as years passed and I maintained that expectation through good times and bad, the results grew exponentially. Opportunities led to bigger opportunities. Relationships deepened and multiplied. Skills I developed in one area suddenly became valuable in another area I never anticipated. Here's something beautiful about this approach. It creates what I call a legacy of expectation. When you live this way long enough, you start influencing everyone around you. Your children watch how you handle adversity and learn to expect success. Your employees adopt your attitude and become more innovative and persistent. Your friends catch your expectation like you'd catch a cold, and their lives start improving too. You become a source of possibility in a world full of cynicism. I've watched this happen with people I've mentored over the years. The ones who truly adopted this philosophy didn't just change their own lives, they changed their families, their businesses, and their communities. They became the person others turn to when things get tough, not because they have all the answers, but because they expect that answers exist and can be found. That kind of leadership is desperately needed in every organization, every family, every community. Now, let me address the question that skeptics always ask. What if you're wrong? What if you act as if everything works out and it doesn't? What did you lose? Well, let me turn that around. What if you act as if everything falls apart and you're wrong? What did you lose then? You lost years of your life living in fear. You lost opportunities you never pursued. You lost relationships you never built. You lost experiences you never had because you were too afraid to try. You lost the joy of living with expectation and hope. That's a devastating loss. But if you act as if everything works out and things are difficult for a while, what did you really lose? Nothing permanent. You maintained your dignity. You kept your enthusiasm. You enjoyed the journey even when the destination was uncertain. You built character and resilience. You became someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. And here's the crucial point. You positioned yourself to recognize and seize opportunities that the fearful person would never even see. I've lived both ways, so I can tell you from experience. In my early years, I expected struggle and I got it, not because struggle was inevitable, but because my expectation created it. When I changed my expectation, my entire life trajectory changed. Not overnight, but steadily, consistently, powerfully. And now, looking back over decades, I can tell you with absolute certainty, the person who expects things to work out lives a richer, fuller, more successful life than the person who expects the worst, even when both face similar circumstances. So here's my challenge to you, and I want you to take this seriously. For the next 90 days, act as if everything is working out for you. Not just think it occasionally, but live it consistently. When you wake up, set that expectation. When problems arise, interpret them as temporary obstacles on the path to success. When opportunities appear, treat them as if they're going to lead somewhere significant. When you meet people, expect them to enrich your life somehow. When you work, expect your efforts to pay off. Do this for 90 days. Without exception, what will happen? I can't promise you'll be a millionaire in 90 days. I can't promise every problem will vanish. But I can promise you this, you'll be a different person. You'll see opportunities you're currently blind to. You'll take actions you're currently avoiding. You'll persist through challenges you'd currently quit on. You'll build relationships you'd currently miss. And those differences, compounded over time, will transform your life in ways you cannot currently imagine. That's not a guess, that's a principle. As reliable as gravity. Act as if everything works out for you, and over time, over the long haul, it will.